Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me in another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today, I have a very special guest. I have the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Zach McVicker with me. What's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on? You said it right, man. Congrats. That's awesome.
I had to practice that one just a few times in my head to make sure. I was like, I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to say it wrong. No, but you get that a lot, though, right? Don't you?
Dude, you nailed it, man. I'm super class. Awesome.
Hey, man, I'm super excited to jam with you. We got a few really cool topics. I mean, hell, some of these topics could be entire podcasts just on their own. But we're going to do our best to kind of keep this down into that 35-minute range. And we wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us. This is going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into our topics, I love to kick off our podcast with a little origin story, because I'm always fascinated how people get into this crazy little world we call the automotive industry. So, Zach, what is the origin story of how you got started in the car business?
Oh, man. Yeah. So for me, appreciate it, man. Excited to jam with you likewise as well. Yeah, life hit me a little early, man. So I started, graduated high school. 2 months later, I was selling cars. That's when I had my son, my first child. And so, yeah, car business was the first thing I got into, and I stayed in it for obviously over a decade now. But yeah, straight out of high school, man, it started early for me. And so I haven't looked back since until now, right to the other side. But early in life.
But this business is one of those businesses, right? Like it gets into your blood and it's under your skin, and it's just, you can't get it out. It just sucks you back in once you think you're out, right? I'm curious. So what was your first position at the dealership?
Yeah, no. So I started selling cars right off the bat, and so it was for a very small town city dealership, a Chevy store anyway. And again, it was. I mean, I grew up in a very small town. It was called Gas City, and so that's kind of, everybody loves the name. Obviously, it's just a different name, but yeah, started selling cars. I did that for a year, and it really wasn't jiving with just the people, the atmosphere. And so I actually left there and I went and worked for a Penske dealership that actually was the number one dealer in the state, 15 years running. And so, started off, I was fortunate. Started off fortunate with some really good opportunities, some really a great company and some great people. But yeah, there was a small town Chevy store, salesperson.
I love small town Chevy store. You know what's funny is that was actually my first job too. My first job was at a Chevy store. And I remember my manager, his name was Greenberg. I actually can't even remember his first name. I only remember his last name. But the reason I remember him so well is every day for lunch, he would bring in these jalapenos that he grew at his house, right? And he would just eat them just raw, just like chomp on them like a freaking carrot. And you just sit there and watch him. He'd be sweating and a little teary-eyed, and he'd do this every day to himself. He was a great mentor, though. But I'm sure, like me, you've probably had some great managers, and maybe some not so great managers. Probably learned a lot about what you are supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And that's a great segue kind of into our first topic, is really around a communication inside of a dealership. Gosh, man, there are so many different directions we can go here, but it blows my mind that it is 2022 now, and we are still having, conversations around how to better our communications efforts. It's like you got the parts department over here, you got the service department over there, you got the sales department over here, and they're like islands where their communication back and forth to each other is like smoke signals. Hey, yes. How's it going? What's your month like? But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts. If we could kind of identify maybe like 2 or 3 strategies, all right, of how we can better those communication efforts, what would you say your number one would be?
Yeah, I think first is just making it easier. I think it's not easy right now. That's the reason why I think there's communication gaps within a dealership, because every department is ran like an asylum, right? They ran as like their own affiliate, their own business. And so making it easier, connecting people in an easier way, I think is the first thing as a topic.
So let's dive a little bit into that, because I think look, I'm with you. Let's make it easier, right? Well, what do you think some of the roadblocks are right now? I'm thinking of one off the top of my head, and then I'd love to kind of get your thoughts too, is, we have meetings with departments. So they're not collective meetings. They're not group meetings. It's like, I just talked to a GM friend of mine who literally just before we got on today's podcast. And I said, what are you in right now? Well, I got to meet with my marketing team. And then after that, I got to meet with the service team. And then after that, I got to talk to my F&I department. I'm like, it's so segregated. So how do you think we can kind of overcome that? How do we start creating this collectiveness?
Yeah, I think that's the collectiveness. I like that word, Jason, actually. I think that's the best way to say it. It's, we have meetings for meetings. I always joke about and say, and we've got to figure out a way to keep the communication consistent. And so the consistency between that, where the longer we have to, we look to find the same time we have to come together, and we have to come together in the same place, right? That is not making communication easier. So finding ways to keep the connection open and to to establish that consistent communication, like throughout the day, not within a meeting, that I feel like is going to be, when I say easier, making it easier. And so not to try to figure out at the same time in the same place to come together is the first one for me anyway. Kind of elaborate on that a little more. Yeah,
no, look, I'm with you. I think you got to have a place. And I'll be honest with you, if you're looking to better the communications, if you can, don't do it at the dealership. There's so much going on. It's like, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting, multiple departments, and how often that department gets pulled out of that meeting because they have to deal with the operations of it. Yes. But I find sometimes we think about creating, communications and bettering our culture, around communications. And it seems like our strategy is, well, let's take the entire team out for bowling and beer and wings.
Yes.
That's not very strategic though. Look, don't get me wrong. I think it's great, but I think we can get a lot more strategic about, how we get the different departments to communicate with each other. And then I think there's better ways to do it too. But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on, how, strategically, how do we get them to start, talking and communicating more with each other?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, that's a great question too, because we've got to really start working more consistently on the same projects, right? Where we have to stop running our business, in my opinion, where it's just the parts department, right? Or it's just a service department, or it's just a sales department. We've got to, moving into the new time and age, like we have got to work together on projects together. We got to bring ideas together. And when you create new projects that everybody's working on together, that I think indirectly is going to create that new communication, because it's a consistent thing that they're doing. They're not just coming together and talking about ideas. They're action plans, right? We're creating action plans where now the service director has got to work with a general sales manager, or the parts manager has got to work with the internet department. And so when you create these new, consistent, ongoing projects, indirectly that they're going to have to talk together more, because when you create the action plans and you set it apart, where you set up where once we come back together, we're going to have X, Y, and Z done, right? We're going to figure out X, Y, and Z. And so really utilizing everybody's ideas more, everybody's capacity more, and not specifically just drill down to what their job title is, right? Yeah, because I think everybody brings so much more to the table than we even realize.
I used to have this meeting, and I think you'd get a kick out of it. And I started it just totally out of fluke. There wasn't necessarily an operational goal objective behind it. It was with the intent to start building some closer culture and some connection and some communications. But the byproduct was quite amazing. And I called them the Little Things meeting. And it was a meeting for all departments to come together and not necessarily discuss the big stuff. Because the big stuff as a team or even as a department, they were handling that stuff. If it was a big issue, it got addressed. If it was an HR problem, it got addressed. If it was a customer communication problem, it got addressed, right? But I was looking for the little things because, I think to me, the employee experience and the customer experience is truly defined not by big things, but by little things. I mean, that's how everybody remembers it. Your last transaction, the reason it was so memorable is because of a little thing or a couple different little things. And, that really strengthened the communication with among the dealerships, because we're just little things like how we answer the phones.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that goes into it more as well. Is like, we've got to set those environments up where that's possible, right? We've got to allow our people to feel comfortable enough to bring in new ideas because they see things or recognize other people and ideas and really giving them where do they go to, right? Who do they go to? Where do they go to? Why is it important for them to come forward? And then once that does happen, we got to recognize it, right? We got to benefit from it, and we got to tell people about it. And so, setting up that, again, environment where that is possible, but also is encouraged. And then when it does happen, recognizing it, that's I feel like when it happens a lot more consistent, because there's a reason now, right? Yes. People have to understand the why. I think too many times we don't explain and communicate the why behind things. And so, yeah, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that. But
I like defining the why. And you know what? Look, everyone has to take ownership of the why. Look, we all know what we do. Come on, right? We move metal and we service metal. All right. And for the most part, I think everybody knows how we do it. I don't know. Some dealerships I go to might be questionable.
Yes. Fortunately.
But I think you're onto something here. I think identifying why we do it, the way we do it, all right, really does open a place to have some very open, transparent communications. And I love the fact that you said, look, I've been in a lot of meetings where I don't think they're safe places to say what I want to say. Do you know what I mean? Like I've been there, right? Now, me personally, I've never had that problem because I will literally say whatever the hell I want to say. But I'm with you though. I don't necessarily think, I've been in a lot of management meetings. I've been in a lot of ownership meetings. I don't necessarily think they are safe places. And I think a great stepping stone to get to a safe place is to, spend time talking about, not what we do, how we do it, but why we do it, the way we do it. I think can bring a lot to it. How do you feel? You think the same?
I love it, man. So I think that's part of, honestly, I think one of the biggest problems we have right now is because of our generation gap,
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Again, it's like I mentioned before, I started selling cars right out of high school. I was a millennial that got introduced to the car business early. Right. And so that was in 2008, right when that was when the last big recession is happening, got cash bunkers, all this stuff. But, I was introduced to go and do this and do it great. Right. Don't ask why. Don't make me explain why I'm telling you need to do this. You need to go do this and just do it. Just make sure it gets done. Right. And now, and it's crazy because I watched this transformation happening with all my friends as they start to grow up and really become real true adults. Right. And the technology that they've grown up with, and just the social media, and so much that they've allowed that they can express what their thoughts are, and they get affirmations back at such a higher level than any way traditional wise. It was just traditional. I hate making them put like a traditional category, but it's like a traditional mindset that we've never had thousands of people that we can get affirmations from or feedback from. It's like we have to talk to one person or a group of people, and that's what we know. This new generation is completely different.
Yes.
People can blow up overnight and have 1 million people view whatever it is that they put out on the internet. And so they get that immediate affirmation. And so because of that generation gap, I feel like it's probably one of the biggest reasons we have a problem within the communication within the operations today.
Well, no, look, I'm with you. Look, we talked about a generational gap. Look, when I first started selling cars, and I still think this is the case for a lot of dealerships out there, look, it's suck it up, Buttercup. It's checking at the door. This is go time. I honestly, I can't tell you how many times I've heard some statement along those lines being told to another employee. And the funny thing is, I still hear some of these statements being used on a regular basis. But I also think that has to do with the generational gap. All right, today's generation of not only buyers, but also salespeople. Okay, they're not suck it up, Buttercup. Okay, they're not check it at the door. All right, they want to be they want the feelings to be acknowledged. And look, I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing. It is what it is. I don't really care what you're necessarily, if you're watching and listening, you're like, oh, yeah, fuck off. Yes. It is what it is, right? Let's just, right. This is the generation we're dealing with, but I'm with you because I think we have that gap in leadership. We don't necessarily know how we deal with the new workforce. And I think you got some cool ideas on how we can, build that gap or, get closer to that gap.
Yeah. Look, it's not easy. Like for me, I just feel like I'm very fortunate to be able to, I feel like I've been in like the middle of the two, you know what I mean? I'm the new generation in a way, but, I've learned all the things that really makes the traditional way successful. The biggest thing is those communication skills. I feel like the soft skills are what's missing in this new tradition or this new generation. But it isn't easy. And I found myself at a point in time in my career where I led more as a traditional way, where it's like I was the first one in, I was the last one out. It's like I did it, I showed by example, grinder. And it's like, unfortunately, you can't be, if you're a leader, you got to make sure people are actually following you. That was something I learned, is it doesn't matter how bad you want your people to do it in a certain way that is successful. It's just they come with a completely different perspective. And if you don't put your pride on the side and try to figure out a way to really connect with them, one, they bring new ideas that you never even would have thought of. And this is what I realized. Two, they're people that actually they'll put their work in, they'll bust their ass if they understand the why, right? If they're motivated enough, and the motivations are much different. And so, yeah, it's not easy.
Well, they want to work for the why.
Yes.
Okay, look, I gotta be honest with you. I got no problem admitting why I got into the car business. Okay, make a shit ton of money, all right, and do it quickly. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I was practically a teenager making 6 figures a year. Like it was stupid, right?
Yes.
And that's what attracted me. I didn't come in and work for a dealership because I wanted to embrace the culture's why and be a part of that. Hell no. I wanted to make freaking money, and to a certain extent, I still think there's some people out there that exist, but, no different than, let's say, in our buying process, which I think our buying process our sales process is gone, right? We had this very, stringent 12-point, 10-point, 14-point sales process. We now have a purchasing process. There are 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways that someone can purchase from us. It's that approach to that operational process needs to be the approach to the generational gaps that we have within our staff. And it's not a one size fits all. There's just that doesn't exist anymore. There's not one way to train someone. There's not one way to develop someone. And so I would love to kind of get your thoughts on how we can approach, these different generations from a training and a development perspective.
Yeah, no, I think the first thing is we've got to realize that, we have opportunity. I think that's one of the biggest things that, even on the other side of the table now, I've been in the dealership operations and now as a vendor, it's like, we've got to realize that there's opportunity. And I think so many times that we will have that knee-jerk reaction is like, no, we do training well. We develop our people well. Well, truly, when was the last time you really took a look at it and see what kind of metrics is showing that? And especially these last 2 years, think about our industry, we've blown up. And does that say that we've gotten that much better? Or is that just because our inventory and the demand hasn't changed, right? The thing is about communication gap I feel like within the generations, that's the same thing with our customers. And so you're talking about this selling cycle and the customer's buying process. Like our customers are coming in prepared for everything we've taught them over the last 15, 20 years, right? Yes. Like they know exactly what we're going to say. They know exactly why we're asking certain questions. And so that's not just a communication gap within the operations, but it's also a communication gap between the customers and doing things the same way that we've done for such a long time that obviously over 61% of customers feel they're either lied to or cheated. Yes. Over 80% hate something about the car buying process, altogether. And so it's, we've got to realize there's a massive amount of opportunity first before we're ever able to even approach fixing this problem, in my opinion. And so that's the first step. But yeah, the communication we got to teach, again, I go back to the soft skills, the soft communication skills. We've got to understand how to read body language, how to understand facial expressions, tonalities of customers, because that's what I believe is missing, especially in this new generation, because again, technology, they can communicate within a messenger. They can communicate online. That's what they choose to do now more than even having a one-on-one conversation. And so, like, it's not just a communication gap within the sales operation, but it's within people. The people are where the generation gap is altogether. And we got to teach how to connect people better. That's what I believe.
100%. And I think that's what we're talking about here. I think there was a lot of stuff that we're dumping on everybody out there that's watching and listening. So if you take a few things from this, I love it. I did want to kind of go, because as you were talking, you got me thinking a little bit more, because I wanted to kind of revisit that why, because I'm looking at like the generational gap and even just bringing on new staff. Right. Mm-hmm. We were joking a little bit about onboarding, and I know you guys kind of specialize in that. And when I was onboarded, it was pretty much there's the brochures, there's the keys. Don't come into my fucking office unless you got a deposit or a credit card. That's it. Yeah. Like that was the end of it, right? But I think now onboarding processes have to be so much just more in depth. And I want to revisit that why, because I think it's for someone to embrace our why, we need to understand their why, and I just remember I had this very young gentleman who worked for me selling cars and for a summer, and things weren't quite connecting with him the first few weeks. So I got onto the floor, I sat down with him, I said, look, why are you here? All right. Why did you choose to do this? And he looked me straight dead in the eye and he says, I want a jet ski. Want a jet ski. I was like, well, okay. I mean, I've heard of some before. That's a unique one. And he's like, look, man, my goal is by the end of the summer to sell enough cars so that I can buy myself a jet ski. I said, oh, you know what? This is an easy one. I usually get more in-depth whys. This is a pretty easy one. Let's sit down. Let's actually document this out. Okay, so what kind of jet ski is this? And of course, it was the Blinger model. It had everything on it. 250 horsepower. What the hell would you need 250 horsepower on a jet ski for? So it was a good expensive one, right? And I said, look, we start breaking it down to literally how many appointments, how many conversations, how many deals he needed, so that by the end of this summer, he could get a jet ski. And I'll tell you what, I came back in, because I think I was gone for a few days after that. I had to go on vacation or something. And I came back the next week, and this kid was lit up. And he actually brought a picture framed, set it next to his desk of the jet ski. I'm like, okay, this is just ridiculous. You can't have that on your desk. But, well, actually, no, I'll let you keep it on your desk. But the kid was lit. And the reason I think for it was he was so jacked and ready to go is because now I understood his why. He knew I understood his why. So now he could embrace my why because I can embrace his why. And, but I think there's some best practices in discovering someone's why. And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how you feel that, management can discover staff's why quickly and effectively.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that back up, Jason, on this. I think that's actually huge, is because people, I think just like that gentleman you're just talking about, that's such a simple thing, right?
Yeah,
that's such a simple thing for him. But it's what's simple to them, right, is not, or what's simple to us, or we think is not so much simple for this again. And it's not just the new generation. I'm saying people in general, because technology is affecting everybody, right? But it's really sitting down and understanding, if we can legitimately understand, again, what motivates them, because people are influenced by things that are completely different today than what we were influenced by in the past when we first started, right? And for us, it was a job. We always wanted to move up. We wanted to make as much money as we possibly can. And the great thing about this business is I still think that opportunity strongly exists. This is a great business to be in, right? This is a great industry to be in. And it's crazy because actually I just created a playbook not so long ago for managers on one-on-ones on how to sit down with the people, what questions to ask, how to approach these one-on-one situations. And it really not to say hey, you need to get your numbers up, but if you can figure out what does motivate somebody, what's important to them, and a lot of them it's purpose, right? They just want to know that they're making an impact. They want to be a part of bigger decisions that really affects the company as a whole. And so for us, there's certain questions we have to sit down and ask them, what's important to you? What are some things that you're trying to accomplish? And all of these conversations, these personal conversations for us as we were growing up through the business, that shit was out of here, right? Don't bring your personal life in, leave it at the door, whatever you're dealing with.
Exactly.
And we had to deal with, we were able to talk about it with our spouse or our friends or people outside of the business. When you clocked in, you're there to work, get a job done, sales manage your cars. I mean, you want to make as much money as you can. It's okay to say, but it's in today's age, social media, technology, it doesn't stop at the door.
No.
And if we don't have something that our people can consistently work on during the day, right, that's going to help us drive our business forward, then how can we ever expect them to shut this off? It's not going to happen. It just is not going to happen. And so we have got to understand what motivates them. We got to understand what's important to them. And if we understand that, and then we figure out and draw that path, like you just said, right? You explain how you get to that jet ski. That's something that's not easy for them to create, because if they want to know something, they Google it, right? But creating an action plan, that's not so much easy. That's not out there as far as for the car business, in my opinion. No. We got to sit down and create an action plan to help them accomplish what it's important to them, and indirectly our business benefits. And so,
it's huge. Look, as an industry, we love saying that we are in the people business.
Yes.
Come on. Put your money where your mouth is. All right. How much time are you really investing in knowing, understanding, and developing and coaching your people? Because I gotta be honest with you, I almost get a little like, I'm like, when I'm like, oh, did you really just say that? Because I know how much time you actually invest in, right? Like I talk to dealers. I'm just like, look, guys, you can't say, put your money where your mouth is. Okay. And I think that there are, I'm thinking back to for me, this was very manual, very, very manual. Okay. Like I had to document everything on paper. I had to keep everything in place. Like I had sticky notes. I was a sticky note monster, by the way. Literally my screen would have sticky notes from the bottom to the sides, up around the top and around the corners. Right. And this was just the way that I was able to kind of just manage my people and their whys and just understand, what motivated them. But I think technology's changed in a lot of ways. So there's so many great ways that we can manage ourselves and manage our people. I live and die by this thing, man.
Yes.
All right. I have kids' time scheduled for 6:00 tonight. My phone will literally turn off every single notification. It will not accept calls, and it will lock itself. It locks itself between 6 and 8 p.m. and I am not available to the world. My whole team knows it. Okay. And it is just straight up, but that's amazing. That's amazing that I can do that. And then technology allows you to do that. But I know you guys some thoughts, and you guys even yourselves utilize, technology in ways we can manage people. So let's jam a little bit about that. How do you think we can use technology to better manage people today?
Yeah, I think we have to understand, we got to embrace it, because This is the thing, it's not going away. Right. It's not going away. And the sooner that we can jump on board and benefiting from it. And that's really what I think motivated and drives me to do what we created, is if we can benefit from it. Right. Let's figure out how. If we can, let's figure out and utilize it and benefit from it. And so it's like we're living in a world where our attention is being sold, right? Yes. But we don't get paid for that. We don't get paid for that. Our attention gets sold, and then we get sold whatever it is that we know that, or this company knows that we're interested in. So if we know our attention is being sold or stolen every single day, right? Mm-hmm. We have got to compete for that. And so when I mean that's that engagement. And so we have got to engage our people with stuff that they're interested in, but also that stuff that challenges them. Because I think that one of the biggest surprises when you said that, you use the word documenting, right? How much time, or the last time that we documented when we sat down to develop one of our teammates, and then the consistency, right? Do we have the documentation, actually the consistency of making sure that we did progress them? Because our business has been ran historically, I feel like, off of, they're going to figure it out. And this is the thing, the top 20% is always going to figure it out. But we're living in a day and age now where those 20% are harder and harder to find. They expect a certain amount of pay, right? Our pay plans have changed how many times? I'm sure you've seen that over the years. And it's like, because it's more competitive. And so we've got to, when you say come where they're at, it's huge to you, by the way, Jason, that you have that, shutting it off for family time, for kids time. That's absolutely huge. So I commend you for that. But we got to come where they're at, right? We got to meet them where they're at. And we've got to do it consistently. And so we got to utilize technology to benefit us, especially if there are other people doing that. It's not going away.
Well, 100%. Look, we have to define the process and then work backwards towards the technology. I find too often we look at technology as being the easy button or a quick fix or the diet pill, and I'm like, this is neither of that, right? If you didn't have the intent or the goal to connect with your team or communicate better with your team, you're never going to work backwards towards the technology. Yes. I have a GM right now, and I love this guy. He's so great about it, but it took a little time to get the practice out of it, is that he sends out a video message to his entire staff every single morning. no matter where he is in the world, no matter what he's doing. All right. Most of the times it's in the car. All right. Other times it's when he's on vacation. All right. But he will send out, and sometimes they're 2 minutes. Sometimes they're a 12-minute rant. All right. But he will take that. He will take that device, record that, and they have this great little WhatsApp group, and he posts it there. And every single morning, it's just that, And I love it because he's worked back towards technology. So like even when, and he does it real time, and I love it. Right. Let's say he hears something positive from a customer about one of his staff members, right? Instead of waiting on it or drafting an email or sending it out, all right, literally within minutes after he's, someone said something nice or there was a positive, remark or a positive Google review, he jumps on and goes, hey, I just want to let everybody know this is what just happened. Mrs. Johnson came up to me and told me Jimmy in service is a rock star. Jimmy, Miss Johnson thinks you're a rock star.
That's huge,
but the whole team sees this, and then of course, what do you think's happening? Right? They're all patting Jimmy on the back. They're sending little high fives. They're sending their little gifs of like,
exactly. But what the also is doing though, what is that doing? That's motivating everybody in his culture though to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Because they want to be Jimmy. I don't give a shit who you are. It's like for us, even though we were motivated by like trying to make as much money as we can, right, or move up and find that next position that we, as far as an opportunity, like people like that affirmation. People like to be noticed and recognized. We may not, react as much as other people may do. It's like, yeah, this is awesome, right? Deep down inside, we feel appreciated more, we feel valued more, and so we work harder. Plain and simple, we work harder. And so to that GM, whoever that is, he's utilizing technology to his benefit, right? Yes. It's like we can sit around and complain about it. And when you say we depend on technology to be the easy thing for us, right, to just solve all of our problems, technology was a way to simplify things, in my opinion, to make it where it can happen consistently. But it still takes our effort. It still takes our commitment to that. And this is the thing: the most rewarding things in life are the hardest to get to, for sure. Right? But it's now if we can find ways to make it possible and then work towards those and work to the long-term gain rather than the short-term success that our business is. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the way it's created. We got to start working towards those long-term gains, and that's where I think we'll really start to see the dealerships, the dealer operations really pull themselves apart from the competitors, because people are committed to that. That's where they'll see the biggest changes, especially in today's world that we're living in.
Oh man, I'm so with you, right? I mean, it's like I'm going to call it appetite, all right? Because that's really what it is. You have to have an appetite for this, okay? Because look, Zach, me and you can sit here until we're blue in the face, all right? And we could try to convince someone to, work back towards technology to help manage and communicate to their staff better.
Yes.
But if they don't got a taste for it, they don't have an appetite for it, it ain't never going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're out there, you're watching, you're listening to this, and you decide this tastes good, then you need, but look, it's little things. Don't be, how do you eat the elephant, right? One bite at a time, you take small little operational processes, all right, that already exist. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We don't want you to reinvent the wheel, all right? But we take little things. In the case of that particular GM that I just talked about, all right, that would have, those type of, affirmations would have happened once a month during the town hall meeting, where everybody shoves into the boardroom, and he's like, and you go down this list of 45 things, and then the number 47 is, oh, by the way, Jimmy, great job, but that would have been weeks prior to it, and it didn't have that same impact, So look, if you're out there watching and listening, small processes, take it, own it, embrace the technology, move into it, and you're just going to better both your communication, and the way you manage your people. Look, Zach, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time, and we've covered some seriously cool topics here, and we could easily, I think, jam for another 30, 40 minutes on this time. But you know what? Before I let you go, though, for everyone out there watching and listening, and would like to maybe kind of continue some of these conversations with you, all right, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can contact me. Obviously, LinkedIn is one of the biggest places we're at, but you can go to our website. It's www.onboardian.com. You can learn a little more about what we've been created and brought to the market, which we are obviously the first to the market on a few different technologies that make what we're talking about a lot easier. Or my cell phone, which again, you can put it up directly. And so I'm sure you'll probably drop on the screen something, the cell phone number, the email, all that good stuff. But the website or LinkedIn are probably the two easiest ways to connect with me.
Awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me. This has been a lot of fun. You have yourself an amazing day.
Yes, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it, man. Awesome time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.